All right, I know we have several people in line, but we are going to go ahead and get started. We encourage everyone to continue networking, but we do want to go ahead and get our formal program going. So, welcome back. What an incredible round of breakouts. The conversation in the hallway and the ecosystem showcase has just been awesome. So, it's been a great thing to see that. That's exactly the goal of this event. So, we're thrilled to kick off our lunch program with welcoming remarks from Bill Woodrum. He is the godfather of the ecosystem, the senior program officer at our catalytic partner and sponsor, the Claude Worthington Benedum Foundation. Bill?
No, thank you all for coming today. It's really amazing. In 2018, in the fall of 2018, at the RCBI facility in Bridgeport, West Virginia, 6 of us sat down. Karen shaking her head. Karen Friel was there. There were 6 of us, though, that sat down. We'd all had experiences scheduling trainings over top of each other, not communicating in the way we should, and not getting things going. It was at that time that we said we should do this better. We should start to collaborate more. And as that was rolling out, in the way of sometimes in West Virginia, I found out that another group in northern West Virginia was doing the same thing. So we had 2 ecosystem projects starting at the same time in West Virginia, and that didn't make any sense at all. So I contacted a person I didn't know at all at that point, Tara St. Clair, and said, why don't we do this together? Our first meeting we held at the Charleston Civic Center, and Secretary Warner and his staff showed up and blew us clear out of the room that day. We had to move to a larger room, and from that point, it's grown exponentially. The Benedum Foundation was catalytic in its support originally for us, and we are happy to be continuing. This day is so gratifying to see the growth of this program. I don't get to be involved anymore as much as I used to. I do try and support where I can and offer advice where I can. So thank you all for coming out. More importantly, thank you all for the amazing work that you do every day with entrepreneurs in the state. Some of my entrepreneur role models are here. I've seen some just amazing people who taught me how to be a business coach 10 years ago or 15 years ago now, and people I've been inspired by throughout. So thank you for all that you do. Thank you for the good work that you're building in West Virginia and for all the things that are coming to be in the state. So thank you so much. And at this time, I'd like to bring Tara St. Clair back to the stage.
All right, so next up, the next portion of our agenda is something that is very near and dear to my heart, and I know many of yours. So I would like to bring up Michelle O'Connor, Mike Green, and Donna Peduto to announce the Guy Peduto Award for 2024.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Guy Peduto embodied the spirit of today's event and the week that we're all going to experience. He had one common goal, which was creating an ecosystem that was built on collaboration, community, and connections. And I think what you've seen today clearly embodies that spirit. When he passed, we were all tasked to pick up the torch and to continue the work of doing good. And I think as we are talking amongst ourselves and meeting and making new connections, we are passing that torch individually on continuing to do good. This year we received a lot of great nominees, and each nominee truly had the characteristics that showed they are continuing his work of doing good. And now Donna Peduto will introduce this year's winner.
Thank you, Michelle, and I really want to thank all the organizers of the conference for letting us remember Guy every year like this. It means so much. When I'm here, I almost feel like I'm among Guy's family. All of you were, and he thought so much of each of you, so it's really an honor to be here. And this is the 3rd time for the award, hard to believe, 3 times. And like Michelle said, we had so many great nominees, and we appreciate that. But we had to do something from the heart that I think came to me divinely and came to Michelle and I, and a little voice from Guy, I think. Because this year, we're picking somebody that many of you know, and I'll just say he's standing right up here with us. He's usually the one that announces the winner, and so I had to tell him why not. But I want to talk a little bit about Mike, if he can stop protesting in the background. That's a fourth grade teacher in me, right? He embodies the spirit of this award, so there's no way not to give to him. And like Guy always said, if I need someone in my corner, I'm going to choose Mike Green first. And that is what we're doing today. He's a visionary. He's a selfless mentor of entrepreneurship. He's willing, I love the servant's heart, and that's what Guy loved about him, that he's willing to get in there with the entrepreneurs and do the research for them, find a way around. And he and Guy would talk for hours, particularly during COVID. I could hear them talking about the different entrepreneurs and the business plans. And it was kind of comical because it was always wailing of gnashing of teeth. You know, the plan's not complete. They don't have, an idea what it's going to take, and on. And then you turn around, you think to yourself, I feel bad for that company or individual. They're never going to get funded. And they always funded them. And they said, that's it. Why would you question that, Donna? They have a great idea. They just need a little help. And that was the way that they worked. But Mike, back on Mike, he never takes credit. He never seeks recognition. He's always there to help in any way he can, and never, ever takes payment for these things. And he's well known for that. And one thing that Mike always does is whenever he's at an event like this, he always has somebody with him that he's trying to promote and push forward. And that he did that for Guy. He introduced him to so many people, and it's just amazing. And the one nice thing about Mike, too, is he has all the expertise and experience to take that idea of an entrepreneur from the napkin to implementation. And that's what Guy always said was the key. Now, many of you know how much Mike is respected throughout the state, but you might not realize all the connections he has nationally and internationally. And it's phenomenal, the people he's known in Silicon Valley and still knows and connect with. And it's just, so many talents, so many things that he doesn't talk about. He more so talks about his roots in Brooklyn than he would, traveling internationally. But I found out a little bit the hard way just how astute he is. I don't know if many of you know this, but he was president of the State Board of Education. And I became the director of operations. And that was a big job for me. I came out of the fourth grade, and I had 9 bosses, 9 board members, and Mike was one of them. And the very first board meeting he went to, we all wondered about him because we didn't really know him. And we were talking about our test scores in the Department of Ed, and we were announcing them, and they looked pretty dismal. And in like 2 seconds, Mike came up with this formula. He said, they're really not reported well. They're misconstrued. It's really not near as bad as it looks. And he went through that. We all stood there with our mouth open. So I went home to Guy, and I told him, I said, I think Mike knows something about math. He's like, Donna, you don't embarrass yourself any more than you already have. He said, you're going to get fired is what's going to happen, because he's the financial guru among all. And that's just one example of the expertise that Mike has. And one thing about Mike that you probably know, wherever he is, he's always looking for an entrepreneur. We had him at the speakers bureau with the Shook, and we had 2 football players from WVU speaking to some middle school. At the end, Mike and the Shook with him had them all signed up for an internship and being an entrepreneur with their app. And that's just an example of, what he does. So I would say I feel like Guy's a unicorn, really hard to find, really hard to replace. But there's one person here that's pretty darn close, Mike Green. because your name's on it.
Yeah, with a Sharpie? What is that? Thank you very much, Donna. That was very sweet. I'm surprised by this. I mean, this was with the award that we put together several years ago in honoring Guy, who was not my friend, he was my brother. I mean, we met many, many years ago after one of my stints in Pittsburgh. And when I came down from Pittsburgh, I was on the board up there of a group called Innovation Works, where we were providing funding and mentoring for entrepreneurs. And I came down and I met Guy, and he said he works for the West Virginia High Tech Council Foundation and a group called Innova. And I said, oh, that's just like Innovation Works. And Guy looked at me, yes. He said, yes, it's exactly like Innovation Works without any money, okay? So, and it's still that way, right? Still that way. But it was one of his goals, and a goal that we're going to try to continue to fulfill was to continue to provide funding and get money from the state to provide for the entrepreneurs, as opposed to always begging the private sector for funding. But to stand up here, and I didn't prepare any remarks here, I mean, but I'm just totally humbled by this, because Guy became, and Donna, and my wife and I, and Diane, and Guy and Donna, we became such close friends over the last several years. And there's a day that does not go by where I get teary-eyed and think about Guy, because he was the spirit of entrepreneurship here in West Virginia. And he and I, we talked every single day. Big difference between Guy and myself was that Guy was so incredibly humbled and so gracious to people, and never spoke a negative word about anybody. And trust me, we met with tons of entrepreneurs over the years, and some of them didn't have exactly the greatest idea in the world. But Guy always left that meeting with giving them encouragement and told them to keep going at it. I wasn't quite the same way. But that was Guy's humility, his graciousness, his humanity, his love for people. And I get teary-eyed when I think about him, because he should be here, but his spirit is here. And none of us would be in this room if it wasn't for the road that he helped pave for entrepreneurship in West Virginia. And I'm just grateful for the years we had together. And I think if we're going to be honoring Guy, it's not because of honoring me by any means. I'm delighted to see this, and I'm basically really, really touched by this. But to honor Guy is to proceed with the game plan that we came up with many, many years ago, and that is to provide mentorship and hopefully some funding and guidance, and we used to call it adult supervision, to some of these young entrepreneurs to help them be successful here in West Virginia. At the end of the day, it's a matter of doing a couple of really good things the right way, and that was what Guy was all about, do things the right way. Guy and I used to joke about that. I said, what does that mean, Guy? What does that mean, do it the right way? He says, if I got to tell somebody what the right way is, I don't want anything to do with them. And that was Guy. And so he always had an expression that when we would come into a certain issue, I'd say, what are we going to do? He says, don't worry about it, Mike. I got this. That was one of Guy's favorite lines. I got this. We're going to figure it out. So I accept this with great humility. To have my name associated with Guy Peduto is very, very touching. And this woman here, and Michelle, of course, are my dear friends. And to honor Guy in the future, let's continue to live up to his goals and his legacy, to provide good mentorship, some funding, and with the goal of keeping our kids here, to creating good companies, creating careers for our young people, and making it a better and greater West Virginia. So that's what Guy would want, and that's what we're going to continue to do. So thank you all very, very much. I'm really honored by this. Thank you.
All right. So our next speaker, we heard a little bit on the Right to Start team this morning to kick things off. So we're going to hand it over to Jason Grill, who is the Chief Government Affairs Officer. He's got some really cool data to talk about and some cool oversight. So Jason.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's just so exciting to be here in West Virginia today. I know some of you heard Victor's speech this morning in fireside chat, so I'm going to hopefully bring to life some of his slides. I'm Jason Grill. I'm the Chief Government Affairs Officer at Right to Start. We're a civic organization working to advance entrepreneurial opportunity for all throughout the country, a national nonprofit. I'm a former state legislator in Missouri, so I'm a recovering politician and spent many years outside of politics working with organizations as a consultant, such as the Kauffman Foundation, the world's largest philanthropist and funder of entrepreneurship in the United States. Also an entrepreneur, have started a couple of my own businesses, have also invested in businesses such as a cowboy boot company, a comedy club, everything from a software engineer, tech. So I've done a lot of investing as well, so I'm a business owner too. Very excited to talk to you today about entrepreneurship and actually to share some new data with you that we gained in partnership with GoDaddy today and their Venture Forward data. So this is the current state of entrepreneurship in micro businesses inside the state of West Virginia. We know that 7 new jobs are created by each micro business entrepreneur on the county level in the state of West Virginia. And that is any business, micro business that has a unique URL or website. So there's over 40,000 micro businesses in the state. That's a 13% increase since August of 2019. And on this map, you can see the top 12 counties in West Virginia for micro business. And there's about 2.2 micro businesses on a whole for the whole state per 100 people. But you can see kind of the importance of these companies and these micro businesses. And Jackson is the first county with the most at 13.1 per 100. Ohio followed by Jefferson. So we have all of this data. We actually released a press release today that lists every single county in West Virginia and the amount of micro businesses per 100 people in that county. We're very excited about this partnership with GoDaddy, and we can unveil more information to you on this if you need any more on this, but this is a huge deal for us to work with them. So why are we here? Why is entrepreneurship so important? Why does entrepreneurship policy actually matter? Well, that's because new businesses create almost all net new job growth in our country. However, only 18% of voters know about it. On this graph, you'll see various lines on new job creation in our country. You can see the top line are companies under 5 years old. Those are who we're working to advance policy-wise in our country. They create jobs. They create the most net new jobs. Companies between 5 and 9 years old is the red line in the center, which remains pretty steady over time. Big companies, 10 plus years old, older companies actually shed jobs over time. But yet government really kind of gives them all the incentives and all the time, whereas new and young businesses really don't get noticed as much, but they're the ones that are creating the most jobs. We know that new companies create new jobs. We know that new businesses grow GDP, increase lifetime incomes, increase community wealth, diversify goods and services in a community. They fight inequality and poverty. For every 2%, for every 1% increase in entrepreneurship in a region or in a community, there's a 2% decrease in poverty, which is a very powerful thing. We also know that new businesses create homegrown jobs. However, despite a recent surge during the COVID pandemic of new companies, America has been in a startup slump for decades. This is a graph over the last 40 years. And you can see, even though we think, man, startups, entrepreneurship, America, we see all the TV shows, it's actually been very much in decline the last 40 years, which is a huge problem in our economy. However, we did a poll with the 2 of the best well-known pollsters on both sides of the aisle in Washington, D.C., and the results were startling. We did this poll in late 2022. Americans unanimously agree that citizens should have a fair opportunity to start and grow their own business. When polled, all different types of parties, whether Republican, Independent, or Democrat, said that 94% believe we should make it easier for people to fulfill their dream and to start a new business. We should not be making it harder on people through government to start and grow a business. However, they thought it was hard. So they think it should be easy. But most people think it's almost nearly impossible to start and grow a new business today in the United States of America. Very difficult, and some will difficult, was over 90%. No matter what party you're in, if you're an independent, Democrat, or Republican. So that's a huge problem. And we pieced these numbers together, and we kind of found that almost 15 million businesses were not created, in part because of overregulation, government fees, or red tape. So, in fact, half of the people who considered starting a business didn't. And on that last slide, we showed you the results. We asked them, why did you not start a business? Why did you not pursue your dream? And these were the reasons. And as you can see, most of these are self-inflicted wounds, such as government fees, insufficient capital, confusing in government forms and requirements, losing your health care was a big one, services were poor with government approvals were too slow, or you were held back by a non-compete. So these are things policymakers, for the most part, can actually change. These are self-inflicted wounds, and one of the reasons why Right to Start exists was because truly nobody was becoming the voice of entrepreneurs to take these issues to government officials on the local, state, and federal level. We can change this. We can break these barriers for new and small businesses, but it takes a lot of work. So we started doing that at Right to Start in 2020. So we're not that old. We're only 4 years old. And we've been changing policies throughout the country. So we've engaged legislators on the local, state, and federal levels throughout the United States. Here's some photos of us meeting with the Speaker of the House in Nevada, which is a great state, which we'll get to here in a second, speaking in the Kansas legislature, and also driving civic action in Arkansas recently through a celebration of entrepreneurship summit, which we're hoping to grow throughout the United States in different places. One of the things we talk about that is pretty easy to understand for most people that are in government is that you should have a dedicated person on the ground in your state or in your city dedicated to entrepreneurship, the person who's the liaison in your state or city for entrepreneurs, a person who is coordinating policies for entrepreneurs, a person whose job it is to help cut red tape in their community, to streamline government processes. These are things that make a lot of sense to policymakers, and in most states, and even in the federal government, as Victor mentioned earlier this morning, there is nobody in charge of this, like a dedicated human whose only goal is to make life easier for new and young companies and entrepreneurs. So this is what a typical Right to Start Act looks like. One, because it's usually the easiest to accomplish, but two, because it really does help entrepreneurs, and they truly need someone inside state government or local government fighting for them. Another thing this bill would do, or this legislation and policy does, is it starts to track data on entrepreneurship. Most places don't have good metrics on how many government contracts go to young companies under a certain amount of age, 5 years old, for instance. They're not tracking these things, and that's a problem. Another thing a state can do is have an annual state of entrepreneurship. So this office would be charged with doing that. This legislation, we'll get to in a second, was passed and signed into law in Nevada. That then became shared state legislation by the Council of State Governments, which is one of the largest organizations of state policymakers in the country. So that's huge. So it's been validated now by a group of legislators on the national level as well as the state level. So as I mentioned, Nevada, the first Right to Start Act was signed in July of 2023 by the governor, a Republican governor, and a Democratic legislature. So this is a very bipartisan issue. It does all the things that were mentioned on the last slide, and I'm happy to report that we meet every 3 weeks with the director of entrepreneurship there, and she is just moving mountains right now on entrepreneurship, so it's very exciting, and we're going to continue to work with the state of Nevada. In New Mexico, another state where a legislators on a bipartisan basis, Republicans and Democrats, worked to create an Office of Entrepreneurship there. It passed in both bodies and then inspired the governor's office to use funding to start an Office of Entrepreneurship there. So they have 2 individuals working on this issue there, as does Nevada. And finally, in Kansas, they created a director of entrepreneurship position in their Department of Commerce after Right to Start, essentially, and our advocates forced the issue on them to talk about entrepreneurship, to reevaluate all the things they were doing in the state through an interim committee hearing and through legislation. The governor's office, through the Department of Commerce, decided to take it upon their own merit and create a director of entrepreneurship position, which we're hopefully and will continue to assist in the rollout of that role in Kansas. There's a job description up today. In West Virginia, I've actually worked directly with legislators here that I've met at various conferences throughout the country. such as Delegate Young, Delegate Moore Capito when he was a delegate, and Delegate Linville to introduce legislation to help entrepreneurship. Unfortunately, the bill last year passed in a committee. The bill this year didn't receive a hearing to essentially do exactly what Nevada is doing. So we're hopeful in the future with partnering with folks in this room and others, such as our advocate here on the ground, that we can actually move legislation here in West Virginia. Or maybe the budget will allow for a director of entrepreneurship in an office of entrepreneurship sometime in the future. But we are active in the state and very excited about things that can happen here. Not only do we have model legislation, we also have a field guide for policymakers on our website at righttostart.org. It has examples of things local officials can do, state officials, and the federal government. Some of those are listed here. I won't get into them because we only have 15 minutes, but there's one I did want to point out to you, which is the 5% to start, which essentially says, shouldn't government not mandate, but maybe encourage, you could do either actually, 5% of government contracts to go to new and young companies under the age of 5 years old. That's something we think really resonates because a government contract can change the livelihood of a small and young company. We have numerous examples of this happening throughout the United States. And it's something that seems to be fair. We're not asking for much. We're just saying 5%. We also believe that 5% of workforce development funding and economic development funding should go to companies under 5 years old. These are the people creating the most jobs in the United States of America, yet we're not really incentivizing them like we are larger companies. We also have ideas such as reducing licensing issues, zero barriers to start, removing a first-year filing fee for a new business is very important as well. The United States is one of the highest places to start a business. Again, self-inflicted wounds. We're charging people to chase their dreams and to create jobs, which is something that fundamentally we believe should change. And we've been talking about this throughout the country, as I've mentioned. Over 40 pieces of legislation have been filed that we call Right to Start Acts in 15 state legislatures. Not only is this happening on the state level, we've also worked with cities to create one-stop shops, such as Kansas City, Missouri, who has kind of built the model for a one-stop shop within City Hall. Later this week, we're going to be speaking in Congress to the House Entrepreneurship Committee in D.C. Victor will be speaking there. So we're touching all phases of government, local, state, and federal, as a young organization and one that's continued to grow. Last few slides here, and we have all this data. It's at righttostart.org/poll if you want to look at it more in-depthly. But we basically polled every single one of our policy issues, and we asked all parties, what do you think of this? And the lowest one of our ideas polled across all parties was 65% approval. These are bipartisan issues that we're hoping more policymakers will take and run on because, frankly, most humans and most citizens across the country believe in them. And we believe pro-entrepreneurship policies really can help America. The last thing I'll mention on our poll was we asked, would you be more likely to support a candidate who made it easier to start and grow a new business? Again, you can see that 62% of Republicans, independents, and Democrats all combined said yes. We want candidates and policymakers who make it easier to start and grow our businesses, and we want more and more new companies in our communities. So at Right to Start, we are making a true impact, and we're only doing this because we have a great group of grassroots folks on the ground throughout the country that we hope to expand on to bring these ideas to more and more policymakers. We've been throughout the country in states like Nevada, Missouri, West Virginia, North Carolina, Nevada, and Oklahoma recently, as you can see in our photos here. We're just starting. We're very excited. You heard from Victor this morning. This is a marathon, not a sprint, and we are hopeful that more and more people can help us on this journey to truly help more and more people start and grow their own businesses with less interference, and which will help our communities grow faster. Thank you very much. Again, Jason Grill, Chief Government Affairs Officer at Right to Start. My information is here, and I look forward to meeting you at this conference. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Jason, for your remarks. Thank you, Victor, for being here. Thank you, Catherine, for coming here. If you guys did not know, we have our own advocate, Ariana. Can you stand up and wave? If you would like to talk to Ariana, she is here today. Thank you for all of the work that Right to Start is doing for the state of West Virginia. Thank you, Ariana, for all of your hard work. We really appreciate you guys being here, so thank you again for that. Okay, so next up, can I bring to the stage Tony Stroud and Ali Diallo? Thank you.
Hello, Ali. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. Happy to be here. Happy to meet everyone.
We
And,
appreciate your taking time to come and spend a little time with us in West Virginia. I know I missed you in Morgantown, but you've been here quite a bit recently. And,
Yeah.
you know, we noticed that the news back in January that LG Nova has announced a $700 million commitment to the state of West Virginia to advance technologies in healthcare, renewable energies, and burgeoning industries. Can you give us a little bit of overview? I know that you're limited to some extent with some federal guidelines and stuff, but what can you tell us about that, and what can we expect to see in the future?
Sure. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. So let me take it back one step back to explain why we decided to invest in the state. So LG Electronics, as everyone knows, a pretty large conglomerate, $63 billion. Really focused on building, washers and dryers and TVs. We have a large market share in hotels. Most of the hotels have TV from LG. And about 3 years ago, the global CEO realized that we needed to reinvent ourselves and really stay closer to customers and communities. And so we decided to create a venture building arm called LG Nova to help create new businesses. But the trick for us was really to create those businesses with ecosystem partners, not just LG itself. So LG Nova, as a venture building organization, decided to really find ways to collaborate with different stakeholders, entrepreneurs, capital ecosystem partners, government officials, and create new business models and new businesses. And so when it was time for us to really scale this methodology and these opportunities, we found the perfect home here in West Virginia. And that's because the state is very agile, very nimble. Our global CEO met with the leaders from the state here and really fell in love with their vision, from Brad Smith, John Chambers, Sarah Bitter, Mike Grainer as well. And there was something magical to be said about how West Virginia carries itself, right? And it resonated with LG. And it goes back to the partnership model that we found here, and the willingness to really bring all the stakeholders together. So we decided to set up shop and to really invest in the state and to create jobs in the process as well, but not doing it alone, right? The key for us was really to involve the local communities, the local stakeholders, different entrepreneurs as well, and universities. And we set up an investment vehicle called Nova West Virginia Investment Fund that is the driver to bring and channel and mobilize and invest, $700 million in the state. And I can go, a little bit more about, how the mechanism works, in terms of the investments. But typically, the goal for us is to really find a venture building model where we come in and we partner with local entrepreneurs from universities, from the corporate, from government even, because we have government technology as well. And we find that design thinking approach that Brad was talking about earlier today, which is, falling in love with the problem first, right? And that's very important for us because the goal for us was not to really come and sort of dictate the way. We came in a very listening mode first and really understanding what the local communities want. So we're still going through that process in sitting down with all the different stakeholders and falling in love with their technologies, their solutions, and their opportunities, and then figuring out a model that is very mutually beneficial for all.
Well, thank you, and we're so excited about this investment in West Virginia. And let me ask you, it's a historic investment in our state. Why West Virginia and why now?
So you can look at what Brad is doing, right, in the state, coming from Silicon Valley, and LG Nova is based in Silicon Valley as well. So, and then deciding to really come back to the States. So we saw that momentum. We saw the drive and the opportunities that great leaders decided to galvanize all together, right? And then, so it does make business and human sense for us to be here along with the local communities. From a business side, the state has the perfect size to attract investors. Not too big, not too small, right? Very connected to all the other states as well. So, the local community, we're about under 2 million, right? But when you connect it to the broader Appalachian region, you can reach 25 million. So that does speak to some investors, right? But also from the human side, the opportunity to build with the local communities. And again, going back to that design thinking process, it really resonates with LG. There is a reason why our motto is life is good, right? Because in order to have that kind of impact on local communities, you need to make sure that you bring them in your innovation, right? And we found that willingness to innovate, to ideate, really here, in a way that we haven't found it in other states as well.
Great, and Brad does frequently say, fall in love with the problem, not your idea.
Right.
So what are some of those issues and stuff that you think that we can collaborate on with this investment to make a difference here in West Virginia?
True. So I don't see them as issues. I see them as opportunities, right, for all of us to really innovate and collaborate. When you look at digital health, for instance, right, you have an opportunity to really impact local communities in rural America, right? When you look at clean tech, AI as a way to really revolutionize the way we train, our workforce. So these are the sectors that we care about, and we found a lot of appetite and also teachings, coming from the local entrepreneurs here. And that's very important for us because we're always in a listening mode, right? We try to absorb and be on the receiving end as well, right? Because we can learn a lot from local entrepreneurs. Even though, LG is a large corporation, the reason we set up LG Nova was to stay closer to the communities as well. And LG Nova is pretty much driven by local communities, local entrepreneurs, technologists, government policymakers as well. So we have a multi-stakeholder approach, and we found that here as well.
Terrific. Let me shift a little bit to higher education, something now near and dear to my heart. And, we have our two flagship universities, our friends from West Virginia in Morgantown, and of course here at Marshall University. What role do you see higher education playing as we look to innovate and create more of an entrepreneurial mindset here in the state?
Yeah, this is also very dear to my heart. I come from an academia background as well. I was an entrepreneur in residence in multiple universities in Boston, in DC. So I really believe in higher education, and universities have that unique opportunity as a hub, right? Because of our nature as universities, we tend to be very multi-stakeholder, right, driven, right? And that's the place where you can really attract different stakeholders and different actors in a landscape, in an ecosystem to build new technologies, right? And there is a model that I really like called REAP, REAP, called Regional Entrepreneurship Acceleration Program. And that's a model that essentially enables you to bring all the different stakeholders. So you have government, academia, entrepreneurs, corporate and investors, and you bring them all together to build a new technology, right? And we found that model here as well, and that's a model that Nova uses quite often.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that we've successfully done here. We've been able to bring the government, higher education, and private industry together, and we're all rowing the oars in the same direction here. How important is that to this initiative?
It is because, the government stakeholder enables you to obviously pass laws much faster, support the different actors, as Victor mentioned earlier, today as well. So that's quite critical. But beyond that as well, the government has an opportunity to help innovate when it comes to creating new constructs and new frameworks to attract investors, right? And I think Victor mentioned, Temasek, I believe, from Asia earlier today as a model. And, we see that pattern emerging, both internationally and here as well, statewide, where you see new constructs being developed to attract investors beyond just your typical venture capital model or typical entrepreneurship model.
One of the things, and I hope you get a chance to drive around Huntington and see the innovation district that we're working on here at Marshall University, and it's a $250 million project, a project that the goal eventually is to connect our campus to downtown Huntington. Many of you got to come last night, and thank you for coming to see our new College of Business building that the Brad D. Smith Schools of Business that we just opened. We're breaking ground on a cybersecurity institute in a few weeks here, and we've also are acquiring a building that we're going to put a bunch of med tech startup companies in. What advice do you have, or what can you tell us about how should we go about trying to develop capital investment for projects like this?
Yeah, I really like what Marshall is doing in that space. You know, I'm both an entrepreneur and an investor, so I always try to find what we call the unique value proposition, right? And I think Marshall found his, right? So there is an effect happening when you look at innovation in terms of cycles. I like to call it the double P effect or P square effect, which is a push and a pull, right? So when you look at the cycles of innovation, typically you had strong push for new technologies that became breakthrough technology, whether it's the internet or broadband, fintech, and so on. But at the same time, it created challenges, right, because of the new technology. So when you look at broadband, that's a push, but it also created last mile connectivity challenges, and that's the pull, right? Same for remote healthcare, for instance, it's an opportunity, but at the same time, you do need broadband in order to address, and deploy remote healthcare. So investors look at the push and pull effect to see where the opportunities lie, right? And that's an opportunity for Marshall because, with the advent of AI and new technologies, that's the push effect. What you see happening now is a challenge when it comes to cybersecurity and and criminal crime, essentially digital crimes happening. So I believe that Marshall has that opportunity to become a hub, for cybersecurity in the state. And I think we only have a few centers of excellence in the States, one in Texas.
Right.
So, investors look at that space very, very carefully. And on the East Coast specifically, we do not have such a hub being developed yet, right? So Marshall has an opportunity to attract major investors as AI continues to scale and other technologies continue to scale, creating that push effect, right? Investors will be looking for the pull effect, right? Which is where are the gaps that the new technology creates, and those gaps are opportunities in disguise.
That's one of the great things, and another great example is the Cybersecurity Institute. The U.S. Cyber Command is going to create a center of excellence, and this is, again, a collaboration with the federal government, the state government, West Virginia University, West Virginia State University, and Marshall University. So, again, another example of everyone coming together toward a common goal to move things forward.
Yeah, and this is quite interesting for us because we really believe in that multi-stakeholder approach, right? You don't see it quite often. Not everybody, walk the walk. And for us, when we sat down with Sarah Bitter, with John Chambers, Brad Smith, they all came and met with our global CEO at LG in Santa Clara in the Bay Area, and the conversation was really about bringing all the actors together, right? And that really resonated with our CEO because that's the model that we've been looking for quite a few times, and that's because LG is humble enough to realize that they cannot move alone, right? They need help. They need that design thinking approach to understand what are the needs and also to understand how the startups can power the technologies from the conglomerate.
One of the things we plan to do, Ollie, in the Innovation District is create an innovation resource hub, and this will be a space where entrepreneurs can come and collaborate with others. There will be shared services there, such as financial, legal, et cetera. I'm going to get my good friend Mike Queen over there to put a one-stop shop eventually. But how important is it to have resources like this? Yeah, how about that, Secretary Warner? Is that a... how important is it to have these resources available for entrepreneurs?
Yeah, it's actually quite critical. And that's a model that I really like. As an entrepreneur, I built multiple venture studios. And the venture studio model is one of those models that enables you to create shared resources for your entrepreneurs, whether you're a corporate or a university or an entrepreneur. You need to have access to that kind of platforms, right? And that's actually one of the types of capital that we plan to deploy in the state on top of the hard cash, right? So you have relational capital, you have technology capital, you have experiential capital, right? And all of those different types of capital come under one shared platform, right? So I'm really thrilled to see how we can sort of partner and collaborate and have LG also contribute, right, to that shared resource platform opportunity.
What barriers do you see that we have here in West Virginia with respect to innovation and entrepreneurship, and what can we do to overcome those?
Yeah, as an entrepreneur, I really don't like the term barriers. I think these are opportunities in disguise, not just for the investor or for the entrepreneur, but for the local community, right? And again, going back to the design thinking approach, right? So really falling in love with those challenges and figuring out a way to solve for them, right? And there are many opportunities in West Virginia. Whether you look at it from a human perspective or from a business perspective, that's the beauty of having that double bottom line approach, where you see the impact that your solution can have, in the daily lives of folks, and at the same time, at the economic level of the state, right? And there are many. So. I believe there is a significant opportunity to tell the story the right way, as Victor was saying earlier today as well. So the storytelling element is very important. Not everybody knows about the great things that West Virginia has to offer, right? And I get that question quite often, when I travel both stateside or internationally, right? So that's why I think programs like Ascend West Virginia are great programs. If we can support that kind of initiatives. A lot of investors are very eager to find great markets, and a lot of investors are moving away from pure commercial success, right? They really want to have that double bottom line strategy now, where they combine profit and purpose, and this is the place where you can find that kind of double bottom line strategy.
Yeah, you mentioned something there I think is very important, and I've heard President Smith say this multiple times. For too many years, we've allowed others to tell our story, and it was told in a not so positive light. But now we have gone on the initiative, and we are now telling our story and what we have to offer. And I know, Sarah, you've been with us on some of these trips. We've been to Silicon Valley, New York, Washington, D.C., Charlotte, Seattle, and getting our story out there. And there's a great video that's been produced called Choose West Virginia. You have not seen it, look it up. It's terrific. But thank you again for your investment in West Virginia. We look forward to what's going to happen here in the future as we look to expand some of these technologies and reach some of these rural areas.
Thank you. And this is really an open call for us. Again, the collaborative mindset that we aim to achieve is very real. So we're very open to collaborating with all the startups. We met great startups, Advantage, and WVEE about a week ago. I'm looking forward to doing the same in Huntington, and also going beyond, Huntington, Charleston, and Morgantown as well. The state, needs innovation, and it goes beyond just 3 cities. So.
Right. Thank you, Amber. Do we have time for a couple of questions, or are we okay? Do we have a couple of questions? Let me bring this mic out here, if I don't fall off the stage. I do multiple things. Some of you know I had this strange bucket list item. I wanted to be Marshall's mascot, so I got to wear the Marco costume. So I have multiple jobs that I do.
Fantastic. I'm Jacqueline Shawless. I am an ascender on the Eastern Panhandle.
I've never met an ascender before. You're my first ascender.
We exist, and first and foremost, thank you again for just this talk and all of this and the monies that's coming to this great state. For people like myself who moved here and brought our businesses here or are starting businesses, what are some ways that we can take advantage of this money? We came here, we love it here, and we want to keep our money in West Virginia. So how can we take advantage of these types of funds and the focus that LG has?
Yep, great question. So I have to be careful on how I frame this because of regulations, but we're about to announce something pretty major in terms of support for the local entrepreneurs, local communities, and we created a commercial acceleration program that is now live. So we'll share the link. And the goal for startups like yours, entrepreneurs like you, is to connect with our LG Nova team. And essentially, we would sit down. We have entrepreneurs in residence. We would sit down with you, look at your business, look at what you what you're working on, and we'll find some synergetic collaboration, right? So there is a little bit of a hands-on approach, and we like it that way because we think we can learn from each other, right? So we would sit down and have a few sessions, understanding the opportunities, and then if there is a match, that's where you would be essentially supercharged with a lot of those resources. So this is on the sort of the fun side, but beyond that, we're also bringing ecosystem resources to support the local community. And so we're looking at having entrepreneur in residence, startup office hours as well, non-dilutive capital. So we'll be in touch, and we'll announce something pretty major in the upcoming weeks.
Fantastic, thank you.
One more. I feel privileged. I've got to meet an Ascender. I'm so excited. I talk about Ascend West Virginia all the time. So now, one more question. Anybody? Okay.
Hi, I'm Kevin DeGregorio. I'm the Executive Director of the Chemical Alliance Zone. So we're a nonprofit that does lots of stuff, but part of that is we help startups across the state. I'm also the board chair of Tech Connect West Virginia. So we've been doing the startup thing in West Virginia for 15 years. So a lot of us around the room have been asking the question, how do we help you do what you want to do? Because we've been doing it here for 15 years without the kind of resources that you're bringing. And so that's been our biggest problem in the state. That's nationwide, but in West Virginia, even more so. I mean, we heard Right to Start, right? Yeah. Talking about some of that. So that's the big question. You don't have to answer it now, but we need to be contacted so we can help you do what it is you want to do.
Totally agree, and I appreciate it because that's also our challenge, right? How do we make sure that we include everyone in our process, in our thought-thinking process, in our building process, in our ecosystem development process, right? And there are two ways to do it. One of them is physical, the other one is digital. So on the more organic physical side, we set up an office, next to Vantage in Morgantown. And we hope to have a presence in Huntington as well to be closer to local communities and have satellite presences across the state so that we could meet with entrepreneurs and stakeholders and nonprofit organizations as well. And then on the digital side, what we're looking into building is a platform that would centralize a lot of the resources that we bring together, right? And make that available to the communities and create a way for the local stakeholders to also be on board on that platform so that we could talk to each other. LG is not just bringing LG resources, so we have LG proper, which are our core technologies, but our model is very partnership driven. So we're also bringing an ecosystem of partners that are accelerating what entrepreneurs are working on here in the state. So we're in the process of aggregating and mobilizing those resources under one roof. So that we can open a platform here that would connect local stakeholders with what those ecosystem stakeholders are bringing to the table.
Wally, thank you again, and thank you for your investment, and we look forward to getting to see more of you here in West Virginia in the future. So thank you very much. Please give them a Amber, I'm going to go off script here for a second, but Mike, I just wanted to say congratulations. I got to meet Mike about a year ago, and I got to spend some time with him recently, and what a great guy and someone so deserving for what he's done for West Virginia. And I look out among this crowd and see all of you who are entrepreneurs and your investment in the state. I see Eldrick over here and Max and my friends from Intermed Labs and Sarah and Victor. Thank you all for your investment and your coming to West Virginia and all that you're doing and all you other entrepreneurs. Great things are happening here, and West Virginia's future is bright. So thank you all very much.
All right, the last thing we have teed up today is actually a trailer from a recent Country Roads Angel Network investment. So O Pioneer is all about changing the narrative and talking about the hardships and creating that pioneering mindset. So without further ado, we're going to tee that up, and then I would encourage you to visit Clara and Jonathan in the hallway right here afterwards to have a little conversation with them about this documentary. But again, this is a Cran investment and something that really ties in a lot to the keynote conversations we've heard today around narrative change. So take it away.
Chaque saison fait appel à un pionnier. Just as it was in 1865 when Walt Whitman wrote about the purpose and life of the 19th century American pioneer. but a pioneer's efforts are often exploitative. In fact, the word pioneer originates in Middle French, pionnier, un fantassin ou un pion, referring to soldiers who would clear a path for the army or to miners pulling resources from underground. Society continues to celebrate the pioneer that innovates at all costs. But if you filter through these loud voices, vous trouverez quelque chose qui vaut la peine d'être sauvé. Something worth more than the tired jokes we tell around our dinner tables or the ugly stories we see in the news. Something worth more than the coal that fuels America or the timber that holds our homes. Les pieds sur terre et le cœur dans les nuages, nous devons repenser le pionnier. The day has come for a reckoning.
I don't know about you, but I'm getting a little emotional. I might just be hormonal, but whew. So thank you all. We are going into we wanted to really build in some meaningful time for networking. If you found this as powerful as I did, they are up for a Webby Award and would appreciate the vote of the ecosystem. So if you all could scan that QR code and give O Pioneer our support, we would really appreciate it. But without further ado, we are going to go into just general networking. We would encourage you all to go and get a free headshot in the arena lobby and visit the ecosystem showcase. We have incredible resources over there. On your tables, you do see a little rack card that talks about an impact study that John Duskins is helping us with to look at the economic impact of Bridging Innovation Week. We would love your help with that study. And in the digital program is a link to our LinkedIn to get connected to the conversations. We will most likely put you all on our mailing list for registering, but that's also a great community to get engaged with. So our next event will be the breakouts at 1:45. So we wanted to build in time. We know this is a great opportunity for networking. So again, go to the ecosystem showcase, talk to resource providers. Please stop by and talk to the O pioneers that created this amazing documentary. And we will see you in your breakouts at 1:45. Oh, and please get your headshots.